The restaurant's private dining room buzzed with congratulations. The lighting was warm and soft, and the low hum of voices mixed with the clinking of glasses and silverware. My daughter Maya sat at the head of the table, her valedictorian sash draped perfectly over her navy dress. The sash reflected the overhead lights, symbolizing years of dedication and discipline. Extended family members filled the space, their phones out to capture what should have been a celebration of her academic achievements. Some leaned across the table for better angles, while others whispered about posting photos online. I watched from my seat near the middle of the table as relatives praised Ma's accomplishments. Their voices carried admiration and surprise. 4 years of maintaining a perfect grade point average while working part-time, a full scholarship to medical school starting in the fall, and recognition from the university president during the ceremony that afternoon. Each achievement had been earned through sacrifice and relentless effort. "Such a smart girl," Aunt Linda said, raising her wine glass. The deep red wine shimmered as she lifted it. "You must be so proud." I smiled and nodded. Pride didn't begin to cover what I felt watching Maya accept her diploma earlier that day. The memory of her walking across the stage was still vivid in my mind. She'd worked harder than anyone I knew, balancing coursework with her job at the campus library, never complaining about the long hours or difficult exams. She often studied late into the night, driven by determination rather than obligation. My mother sat at the opposite end of the table, her posture rigid. Her hands were folded tightly in her lap. She'd barely spoken to Maya during the ceremony, offering only a brief nod when we arrived at the restaurant. My father sat beside her, checking his phone intermittently, avoiding eye contact with anyone for too long. The waiter brought out the main courses. The aroma of cooked fish, roasted vegetables, and rich sauces filled the room. Conversation shifted to Mia's plans for medical school, her intended specialty, and the competitive program she'd been accepted into. The future seemed bright and full of promise. Uncle James asked detailed questions about her research project. He leaned forward with genuine curiosity, genuinely interested in her work on cardiac regeneration. "She gets her intelligence from our side of the family," my mother announced suddenly. Her voice cut sharply through the room. The table quieted, though intelligence doesn't pay bills. I felt the shift in atmosphere immediately. The air seemed heavier, and conversations stopped mid-sentence. Maya's smile remained fixed, but her hand tightened around her fork. "That's true," Aunt Linda said carefully. "Medical school is expensive. I have a full scholarship," Maya reminded them gently. Her voice was calm and respectful. "Tuition, books, and a stipend for living expenses." My mother waved her hand dismissively. "I'm not talking about Maya's expenses. I'm talking about freeloaders who think education entitles them to live rentrée." She was looking directly at me. My father shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Uncle James suddenly became very interested in his salmon. The cousins exchanged glances, unsure whether to intervene or stay silent. The tension was unmistakable. "Mom," I said quietly, "this is Maya's celebration dinner, which makes it the perfect time to discuss adult responsibilities," she continued. Her voice carried that particular tone I'd heard throughout my childhood, the one that brooked no disagreement. "You're 42 years old. You have a college degree, yet you still live in our house, contributing nothing." The waiter, approaching with the wine bottle, stopped mid-step, read the room, and retreated. "I contribute to the household," I said evenly. My voice was controlled, though my chest felt tight. Maya's eyes met mine across the table. I gave her a small shake of my head. This wasn't her fight. "Grocery shopping occasionally doesn't count as contribution," my mother said. "Your father and I have been discussing this. We've been more than generous, allowing you to live rentrée while you raised Maya. But she's graduated now. She'll be moving to her medical school housing. There's no reason for you to continue taking advantage of our generosity." Aunt Linda set down her fork. "Maybe this conversation should happen privately." "Why?" My mother's eyebrow arched. "We're all family here. Everyone should understand the situation. No more free living. Starting tomorrow, you'll pay market rent or find somewhere else to go." Uncle James cleared his throat. What's market rent in your neighborhood now? 2,800 a month, my father said quietly. He looked uncomfortable but didn't contradict my mother. That's fair for the area. I reached for my water glass, taking a slow sip. Maya had gone very still, her valedictorian sash suddenly seeming like a mockery against the tension filling the room. That seems reasonable, Aunt Linda said, though her tone suggested she was trying to diffuse the situation rather than agreeing. Everyone should contribute to household expenses. Exactly, my mother said. We've carried the financial burden long enough. 42 years old and never owned property, never built equity, living off family charity. The cousins stared at their plates. Uncle James signaled the waiter for more wine. I think that's fair, my father added, finding his voice. You've had plenty of time to get established. Maya's success proves we provided a good home, but it's time for you to stand on your own feet. I set down my water glass carefully. The leather portfolio I'd brought sat beside my chair. I'd planned to give it to Maya after dinner, filled with documents about the trust fund her grandmother had left for her education. But it contained other papers, too. Papers that told a fuller story. You're right, I said. My mother looked surprised that I'd agreed so easily. This is the perfect time to discuss property and financial responsibilities. I pulled the portfolio onto my lap and opened it. The documents inside were organized with colored tabs, everything in order. I'd always been meticulous about paperwork, especially when it involved finances and legal matters. Since we're discussing rent and property ownership, I continued, pulling out the first set of papers. I think everyone should understand the complete financial situation. My mother's eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? The house you're currently living in, I said. The 4-bedroom colonial at 847 Maple Street. You want to charge me $2,800 a month in rent? It's our house, my father said. We've owned it for 30 years. I slid the first document across the table. Uncle James picked it up, his eyes scanning the text. His expression changed immediately. This is a property deed, he said slowly, dated 15 years ago. Let me see that, my mother demanded, snatching the paper from his hands. Her face went pale as she read. What does it say? Aunt Linda asked. I pulled out another document. 15 years ago, when you were facing foreclosure, you came to me. You asked for help. I had just received my inheritance from Grandma Patricia, $240,000. The table had gone completely silent. Maya's eyes were wide, watching the scene unfold. You used that money to save our house, my father said. We paid you back. You paid back $70,000 over 3 years, I corrected. Then the payment stopped. You said business was slow and you needed time. I said it was fine. We were family. My mother's hand trembled slightly as she held the deed. This doesn't mean anything. It means everything, Uncle James said, still reading over her shoulder. This deed transfers ownership, full ownership. You didn't just loan them money. You bought the house. I pulled out more documents, bank statements showing the mortgage payments I'd been making for 15 years, property tax receipts in my name, insurance policies listing me as the owner. Every piece of paper meticulously filed and documented. Each document represented years of quiet responsibility. When you couldn't pay me back, I explained, we agreed to a different arrangement. You transferred the deed to me. In exchange, you could live there rentrer. The agreement was clear. I would cover the mortgage, taxes, and insurance. You would maintain the property. It seemed like a fair solution that kept everyone housed and preserved your dignity. Aunt Linda leaned forward to see the documents. You've owned their house for 15 years. The mortgage will be paid off in 3 more years, I said. I've been making payments of $1,800 monthly, plus property taxes of about $6,000 annually, plus insurance over 15 years. That's roughly $430,000. I've invested in that property. My mother's face went from pale to red. You never told anyone. You asked me not to, I reminded her. You said it would be embarrassing if people knew you'd lost the house. I respected your privacy. My father stared at the documents spread across the table. We thought we assumed. You assumed I was living off your charity, I finished, when actually I've been providing housing for you while raising my daughter and working full-time as a database administrator. I work remotely, which is why I'm always home, not unemployed, not freeloading, working. Maya's expression shifted from shock to something else. Pride, maybe, or vindication mixed with relief. This can't be legal, my mother said. We'll fight this. Uncle James shook his head. It's completely legal. I can see the notary stamps, the county registrar marks. This deed is legitimate and recorded. I pulled out one final document. This is from my attorney. I had her draw it up last week just in case this conversation happened. Preparation had always been my habit. It's a formal notice regarding the property at 847 Maple Street. My father reached for it with shaking hands. As he read, his face crumbled. "What does it say?" my mother demanded. "It's an eviction notice," he whispered. 30 days to vacate the property. The dining room erupted. Aunt Linda gasped. The cousins started talking over each other. Uncle James held up his hands for quiet. "You can't do this," my mother said. "We're family." "You just demanded I pay $2,800 a month in rent," I said calmly, "at my own house, in front of my daughter on her graduation day after years of letting you believe you were supporting me out of generosity." "We didn't know," my father tried. "If you just told us." "I did tell you," I said. "Every year when I filed taxes, every time the insurance needed renewing, every conversation about the property, you chose not to acknowledge it because it was more comfortable to see me as dependent on you." Maya finally spoke. "Grandma, you've been telling people for years that Mom lives in your house rentrée. I heard you at Thanksgiving, at parties, at my high school graduation." "We thought it was true," Aunt Linda said weakly. "You thought what was convenient," I corrected. "Nobody asked questions. Nobody wondered how a database administrator with a steady income and an inheritance could possibly need housing charity." The waiter appeared cautiously with dessert menus. Uncle James waved him away. "So, what happens now?" my father asked. "Where are we supposed to go?" I gathered the documents back into my portfolio. "You have 30 days to find alternative housing. The property will be prepared for sale. Given the market value in that neighborhood, I expect to clear about $600,000 after the remaining mortgage is paid." My mother's hands were shaking. "This is revenge over one comment about rent. This is about 15 years of disrespect," I said. 15 years of being treated as a burden while funding your lifestyle. 15 years of watching you take credit for providing for Maya and me while I paid the bills. "We raised you," my mother tried. "Doesn't that count for something?" "It counts for the 15 years of free housing I already provided," I said. "But respect is a two-way street. You demanded rent at my daughter's graduation dinner in front of family without any acknowledgement of reality." Uncle James cleared his throat. "For what it's worth, I think you've been more than fair. 15 years of free housing far exceeds any childhood debt. Don't you dare take her side," my mother snapped. "I'm not taking sides," he said. "I'm reading legal documents and doing basic math. She's been paying your way for 15 years. She has every right to stop." Maya reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Can we go home now?" I nodded and stood. "I think we're done here." "Wait," my father said desperately. "Can we talk about this? Work something out?" "You had 15 years to acknowledge reality," I said. "You chose pride over honesty. Now you have 30 days to find housing you can actually afford." Aunt Linda started crying quietly. The cousins looked everywhere except at my parents. "This will destroy us," my mother said. "Everyone will know we lost our house." "Everyone already knows," I said. "They've known for 15 years. They just didn't know you were pretending otherwise." I helped Maya with her coat. Her valedictorian sash caught the light as she adjusted it. "Congratulations again, sweetheart," Uncle James said to her. "You earned everything you achieved." "Thank you," Maya said. "And thank you for always treating my mom with respect." We walked out of the restaurant together. Behind us, I could hear my mother's voice rising, my father trying to calm her, Aunt Linda attempting to mediate. In the parking lot, Maya turned to me. You really own the house. I really own the house, I confirmed. And you've been paying for everything this whole time. Everything, she hugged me tightly. Why didn't you ever say anything? Because they're still my parents, I said. And I hoped eventually they'd see me clearly without needing to be forced into it. But they didn't. No, they didn't. We drove home in comfortable silence. The house at 847 Maple Street sat dark when we pulled into the driveway. My parents wouldn't be back for hours, probably staying at the restaurant, arguing with relatives about the unfairness of it all. Maya headed upstairs to change. I sat in the living room I'd been furnishing and maintaining for 15 years, looking at family photos on the mantel, pictures of Mia's childhood, of holidays and celebrations, all in a house my parents believed they owned. My phone buzzed. A text from Uncle James. Your attorney's contact info. We should talk about fair market rent for their next place. I'll help them find something realistic. I sent him the information. Then I opened the portfolio again and looked at the final document I hadn't shown anyone. An offer from a property management company to rent the house for $4,200 a month once my parents moved out. More than enough to cover the remaining mortgage and finally start building actual profit from my investment. Maya came back downstairs in comfortable clothes, her sash carefully hung in her closet upstairs. Do you think they'll really leave? They'll leave, I said. The law is very clear about property ownership. Good, she said firmly. You deserve better than how they treated you. I pulled out the other half of the portfolio's contents. Speaking of what you deserve, Grandma Patricia left you a trust fund for medical school. Even with your scholarship, you'll need money for living expenses, equipment, maybe a car. Her eyes widened as I showed her the balance. 50,000 carefully invested and grown over the years, waiting for this exact moment. You've been taking care of everyone, she said softly. That's what family does, I said. Real family, the kind that sees you clearly and supports you honestly. She hugged me again. Outside, a car pulled into the driveway. My parents home earlier than expected. I watched through the window as they sat in their car, neither moving to get out. Tomorrow, I'd call my attorney and begin the formal eviction process. Tonight, I'd celebrate my daughter's achievements in the house I'd worked 15 years to maintain. Maya went to make tea. I stayed on the couch, surrounded by years of memories in a home that had always been mine, waiting for my parents to finally come inside and face the truth they'd been avoiding for far too long. The doorbell rang, not my parents using their key, but actually ringing the bell. A small acknowledgement, perhaps, that something fundamental had shifted. I went to answer it, ready for whatever conversation came next, secure in the knowledge that I'd done nothing wrong. I'd provided, I'd supported, I'd been patient for 15 years. But patience and charity have limits, especially when met with disrespect at your daughter's finest moment. I opened the door. My daughter graduated with honors. Mother's response: start paying rent tomorrow. The family story continued, now changed forever.